Welcome to Behind Enemy Line Sports with Brandon Matthews, Seattle and Tennessee. Let's talk about it. All right, here goes the first loss in our loss column against Tennessee. The game ended 33-30. Seattle losing by 30. Losing with 30 points. Man, it's super cliche, but I will say that this game definitely had the stereotypical tale of two halves. Seattle came out hot, and then in the second half they fell flat. Tennessee came out flat, but then ended up being super hot. And I do have some ideas as to why this ended up being the case for the second half with Seattle, at least. I think Seattle shot themselves in the foot a lot of the time. They ended the night with 10 penalties, 100 yards, whereas Tennessee ended with 5 of 45. And, there weren't turnovers on Seattle's end, but the penalties killed us, especially when they came. There were several penalties at super inconvenient points of the game. I know there was one there towards the end where it would have been fourth down, but Seattle ended up getting, I believe, a pass interference or a personal foul or personal whatever penalty. It wasn't pass interference. I think it was Julio Jones had gone up for the catch or something, and our defender, I can't remember his name right now, but I don't want to say he didn't do anything, but he affected Julio's ability to catch the ball, at least. I'll give him that. And he got up and taunted Julio, which as soon as he did that, I knew right away a flag was about to come in, and sure enough, right on cue, that flag flies right into the screen. And yeah, I think that's just kind of Seattle kind of effed themselves in this game, to be honest, when it came to that aspect of it. But I do believe in the second half, the biggest issue for Seattle, besides the mental mistakes, where Seattle just on offense, could not convert the ball. I think it was in the second half, the broadcast put up a stat that Seattle had ended up going 3 for 9 on first downs, I believe it was. 3 for 9 on third down conversions, that is. And so Seattle wasn't able to get the ball, get first downs when they were sitting on a third. So essentially what that meant is the defense didn't get the opportunity to rest. There was a point where Seattle had gone 3 and out a couple times, or not even a couple times, but they ended up turning the ball over on downs, punting and whatnot. And I remember thinking, the defense just is not going to be ready. And I think it was very obvious because in the beginning of the game, Seattle's defensive line was going crazy. They were penetrating the offensive line. They were getting to Ryan Tannehill, causing issues. The only issue I had in the first half with Seattle's defense was the secondary, because Ryan was able to actually get some deep passes on him that they weren't really, able to stop. But as second half came around, Seattle's defensive line was a non-factor, and by then Derrick Henry was chugging. He was going. Seattle lost all their what's the word I'm looking for? They lost their discipline in their gap assignments. I mean, the broadcast were mentioning it, but it was just very obvious. Derrick Henry just had, he would bounce out and then he'd have a gap. So it really bit them in the ass having the offense come off the field as quickly as they did. But there are a few points I want to bring up while watching the game. DK Metcalf is one of those points I want to bring up first. He, I like him as a player. I think he's an amazing athlete in that I think he's going to be great, or at least I hope he is, at least when he's with Seattle. But he's kind of becoming a little bit of a distraction. I mean, I don't want to say too much say that he's being distracting too much, but it was last week he got a personal foul, and obviously now if you get 2, you're ejected. And this week I believe he got another one, and so, I understand the game he's playing. He's trying to bully the cornerbacks. It's just how he's playing right now. But at the same time, I can't help but think that that's kind of that's a little bit of a distraction. So, hopefully he figures it out, or at least, cools it off a little bit. And also, I think it's just going to take some getting adjusted to with these rules. I mean, the way that the NFL is wanting to flag, taunting and whatnot, and how they're going about it, I think is a little ridiculous and a little over the top. But I think it's just going to get some adjusting to. I mean, I've seen in multiple games today guys taunting, and I think it's just guys are just used to being able to do that from previous seasons. Um, Tyler Lockett, on the other hand, I want to talk about him. Man, he's having one hell of a season so far. I know it's only 2 games in, but he ended the day with over 170 yards on 8 catches, and I'm just like, wow, Tyler is having a season so far. But in part, I think that has to do with the coverage on DK. I think teams are concerned to let DK be one on one because he can burn most guys. Also, a point I want to make about DK Metcalf before I give Tyler more praise is I think the guy has a hard time staying on his feet. It seems like he doesn't see. I mean, when he's off the ball, he's fast. When he catches the ball, you just hope he has some open space because every time he catches, and I know there's a guy who's about to put an arm on him, I just feel like I know DK is going to fall over. And sure enough, every time, it seems like the guy loses his balance right away. I don't know if there's any way he can correct that. I mean, I imagine it just has to do with his balance and being able to stay upright once he's been hit. But DK does go down pretty fast. So, anyways, Tyler, on the other hand, in previous years that was his issue, but now it seems like he's stumbling back up and finishing and scoring, and if this continues, I mean Tyler might be one of the top receivers in the league this season for all we know. At least just based on the last game and this game, if he continues that trend, it may look like that. Man, I talked about the penalties, the defensive line. Russ, second half. The first half, what he did very well was he was getting the ball out fast. I mean, maybe the receivers just weren't open in the second half. Like maybe Tennessee made some sort of a change in their coverage scheme. Or maybe they figured out what Seattle's game plan was. I'm not sure. But Russ was holding on to the ball way too long in the second half. And once he started doing that, the offensive line started breaking down quite obviously. Their defense just kept penetrating the line, hitting Russ, or even getting to Russ. I mean, the game almost ended on a walk-off safety. And just because I wanted to look and see how many of those actually happened in the NFL, that would have been the 38th, I believe, 38th walk-off safety. And at least I would have been at least somewhat excited about that, only because it's just not very often that happens, clearly. We're talking about over 100 years of NFL here, so, or at least since they started recording that stuff. And from what I mean, when you put the numbers, when you do the numbers, and you figure out how many games have been played in that amount of time, it's a very rare occurrence. So that would have been cool. That would have been kind of funny, though. Man, one thing I also want to talk about. I noticed Carlos Dunlap. What happened to him? Where's he at? I didn't actually notice him in the game until late. So I'm not 100% certain if he was there early, but I think it was just last week. I mean, I had a similar thought. I'd been watching the game thinking, where's Dunlap? I remember obviously the year prior when Seattle signed him, he basically lit a fire underneath that defensive line's ass, and he was just kind of like the anchor for that line. Now I don't even hear about him. I mean, last week he had a sack that was really impressive, but today I just can't say that I saw him do anything. So I'm just wondering, where is Dunlap at? Is he gonna come in sometime? Is he gonna, or not even come in, but is he gonna show up eventually? And yeah, I mean, this kind of sucks. Seattle lost today. Well, not even kind of does suck, because it definitely looked in the first half there that it was not gonna be that way. Anyways, not much else to talk about, at least for me. Next week, Seattle is playing who? I don't know. They playing in the snow. No, they're not. I don't know who they're playing next week right now, but hopefully they correct those mistakes, man. I think Seattle's offense looks great. There is right before halftime with a minute left, you had Russ very efficiently and the offense very efficiently go downfield, put up a quick touchdown before half. I thought that was amazing. I was just, I thought, wow, okay, so we're going. Basically, this is what it looks like when we're running a quick offense, and it's nothing to scoff at. I mean, it was really impressive how quickly they went down the field, but they just couldn't turn it on in the second half, and that's unfortunate. So, all right, I think that's where I'll end this. Wrap this up, baby. All right, follow me on Instagram at Behind Enemy Line Sports, Twitter at Brandon2012, and you can also follow me on YouTube or subscribe to my YouTube channel while you're at it because you're already here. All right, see y'all next time. Bye.